Hi, I'm Michelai Graham, the Technically DC Market Editor. Technically is a news site that grows local technology communities by connecting organizations and people through news, events, and services. This is Technically DC Diaries, a pilot interview series where I will talk to local technologists and startup leaders about themselves and why they do the hard and good work that they do. For this inaugural edition, I have with me Don Myers, the director of the Vinetta Project DC chapter. Thanks for joining us, Don.
Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
good. Hang in there.
Good. So let's get started. How did you first get into technology slash entrepreneurship?
It's such a long story. So I started out actually in kind of the law and political sphere. And I very early on in my career, I saw that I was really attracted to the business side. And
Mhm.
so most of my career in big law ended up being on the business side of the house. And I really enjoyed kind of building practices from scratch. So I knew that, business was where I wanted to be, but law wasn't all that exciting. And so I ended up, while I was at the firm, building up a real estate portfolio,
Mhm.
and loved that work. But again, I got into real estate, and after a few years, I said, this is cool, but it's not quite it. And so, in searching for my it, I found myself in lots of entrepreneurship groups around DC and in the ecosystem. And I started hearing about startups, and I started hearing about tech. And, I thought to myself, this is so far out of my wheelhouse, but I had a lot of people behind me saying, if you want to, start a startup in this space, you can do it. And, I ended up actually starting a hair startup that, makes hair tools for women with highly textured Afro hair. And then from there, I really very early on in my career in startup land started to kind of take leadership positions in various organizations. And years later, here we are at Vinetta Project.
Awesome. So what does a day in the life of a Vinetta Project DC director really look like? What do you do?
It looks like a massive dumpster fire. Just kidding. Partially kidding. So, as you know, I run my company and then I run the DC chapter of Vinetta. And so I have two incredible teams that help keep all of that stuff going. And so it's a really incredible balancing act that I wouldn't be able to do on my own. But because I have such incredible folks behind me, making sure that everything is coordinated and that everything works the way it's supposed to all day. I try not to start my day before 9 a.m. Usually at 9 a.m. that's when the calls begin.
Mhm.
And it's usually a pretty even exchange, something for the most, something for Vinetta. And then a lot of the stuff that we do has a lot of overlap, right? A lot of the networking
Definitely.
with investors, with ecosystem partners that I do for my company. It's the same networking that I need to be doing for Vinetta. And so there's a lot of overlap there. And so we really kind of have both teams working together to make sure that that kind of symphony works the way that it's supposed to. And then, at some point, usually in the evening, calls wrap up, and then I dedicate the rest of the evening to actually getting the work done that needs to get
Mhm.
done. And then you wake up the next day and start it all over again.
So entrepreneurship is a 24/7
That's
job, essentially.
right. That's right. And when you're doing it right, it feels good because,
Right.
this is what I want to be doing. I want to be having conversations just like this one, right? So it doesn't, if you're doing it right, it doesn't feel like work.
Absolutely. So what's great about the DC tech community and what can it do better?
Such great questions. So, what's great about the DC tech community is that it's quite robust. I think it's more robust than we sometimes give it credit for.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also in its nascent stages, right? I think we'd all agree that while we've got some incredible talent in this city, we've got a ways to go in terms of building it out. And that to me sounds like opportunity, right? That's a real opportunity for folks to come in and build the infrastructure the way that we want to. So there are lots of folks in DC who are very focused on this being an inclusive tech ecosystem, and I think we've done a really great job of building it in that direction. And we see it going more and more in that direction year over year. And what can we do more? There's so many things that we can do more, right? But I think at its core, what it comes down to is everybody giving their little bit, right? I think we have a lot of people who like to say, oh, I wish we had this, or I wish someone were doing this. But I think it's really, especially in an ecosystem like this one, that again is more in its nascent stages, it's really incumbent upon each of us to contribute and take it in that direction and provide that infrastructure that we want to see. So, one of the things, one of my pet peeves is when I hear founders say, well, why doesn't somebody do this? Well, sis, why aren't you doing it? So, I think if we want to build it out, if we want this truly to be an inclusive ecosystem, we have to do the work to make it that ourselves.
Absolutely, I agree. So with that being said, when we first talked, which was what, like March, April, seemed like ages ago. You were a few months into your role at Vinetta. How are you now working to keep the community connected during this unprecedented time? What are some things you've been focusing on doing to make sure the community still feels like a community when we're all
Yeah.
kind of separated?
Yeah, I think it's a tiered kind of response to that answer. I think one of our big things is just making sure that we're putting on programming that's responsive to what the community needs, right?
Right.
And those needs have changed so dramatically, just in the time that I've been at Vinetta. So when we first came into Vinetta, it was pretty generic, pretty kind of vanilla, right? Then COVID hit and everybody's kind of hair was on fire. No one knew what to do. So then it was about giving people assurance, giving people guidance, giving people direction. Then later on in COVID, now that PPP has come out, it was about giving people guidance and connecting them to the right people and the right resources to get them what they needed. Now it's changing dramatically still, right? Like we've got folks who have, more or less weathered the storm or haven't and are now trying to plot a pathway forward. Well, that's an entirely different set of programming. So um, one of the ways that we're keeping folks connected is by making them feel like they are being heard and their actual needs are being responded to. That's the first piece. The second piece is trying to be really deliberate about the user experience for all of our programs. So for example, you guys know that we do our pitch competition, which is coming up on September 8th.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. Look us up on our Eventbrite, look us up on on our website, RSVP for that event. It's going to be great. But what we really try to do is for each of those events, they're webinars. So, they have to be clean. They have to be precise. We want to put on a really good, tight show. On the other hand, we want folks to feel like they're invested. And so it becomes about figuring out all of those nuances, all those little ways that you can make people feel like they are a part of that community. So it can be as simple as doing a webinar, but making sure that the chat stays on so that folks can communicate. It can be as simple as folks sign in, keep your Eventbrite screen up on a separate computer screen or on your phone so you can see who's RSVP'd. Call them out. Say, hey, Amanda, hey, Jenny, hey, Melissa, we see you out there. We heard about your recent win, and bring them into the program even if they can't speak. It's about finding all of those little interactive elements, whether it's a Q&A on Zoom, whether it's a poll, whether it's getting people to interact with you on social media, right? Instructing people to screen record, take screenshots, take the quotes that they like from the presentation and put them out on put them out on social media so that folks can interact with the event. All of those little nuances really do add up to, folks feeling like they're still invested in the community. And then there was one other thing that I wanted to mention, but it has since flown the coop. But yeah, it's really been for us. It's the third prong of that for us.
Yep.
Is small format programming. So as you guys know, Vinetta tends to do these really big 100, 200, 300 person events. And that's wonderful. And there's a place for that. But what we also want to keep are our small format events where we can very deliberately make curated connections. So, you guys saw our founder and funder dinners, which we're like pretty famous for in the world before when we could actually meet up in person. And we've been trying to keep those small format founder and funder dinners and investor roundtables to really give people a safe space where, it's not a big networking, free for all, but people can actually come together, ask the questions that maybe they might not feel comfortable asking in those bigger format events, and really kind kind of doing that curated connecting.
Absolutely. I think that's important for sure. And you guys are hosting these investor roundtables still virtually? Or are you guys doing any in-person interaction for that virtually?
Virtually, everything's virtual for at least through the end of the year.
At least through the end of the year. Perfect. So how has your work-life balance actually been since working from home? I know before we came on camera, you mentioned that your interview station is also your inventory station. So what is life and work look like for you right now?
Yeah, I got to be honest, that's not a thing that I am doing particularly well at
Yeah.
this moment. Uh, but that comes part and parcel when you really love what you do. They tend to blend together. And I got to say, sometimes I have a difficult time knowing how reasonable or even how much of a goal it is for me to have work life balance, right? I don't necessarily want to separate from my work completely. I
Mhm.
do need rest. I do need downtime. I do need time with my family and my friends. But for me, those things are weaved together, right? For me, my time with my friends and family are also opportunities for me to get reviews for our new products and look for investors for a friend of mine who is raising a round, whatever it is. So those worlds all kind of interweave for me, and there's balance in there, but there's not that stark separation for me. And I gotta be honest, I'm not sure if I'm even shooting for that.
Hey, I love honesty. I find it easy, of course, now working from home and me right now working from the West Coast, I'm like, technically 2 p.m. is my off time. And here I am, like an hour and a half past work. I'm like, I didn't even realize I was off the clock because I was actually enjoying what I was doing. But with that being said, I do specific activities to recharge. How do you recharge on the weekends?
How do I recharge? Deep sleep. I have to have one day where I can just sleep
Oh,
as long as I can.
I like
Don't
that.
don't text me. So I definitely have that day, and that usually ends up being Sunday. And hikes have been incredible, and I know you on the West Coast are getting a lot of that.
Yes.
But to the extent that we can get a little bit of in DC, whether it's Great Falls or the Billy Goat Trail, whatever it is, every weekend I've got to find some time to get out there, commune with nature, get off of my screens. So I'm, maybe maybe this isn't consistent with what I said before, but I think for those few hours, really disconnecting from everything has been quite helpful for me.
Yes, for sure. What I try to do is I also use Sunday as my recharge day where I won't schedule anything on Sunday mornings, like because somehow even on the weekends I find a way to do some type of work.
Yep.
But I don't do screen time when I wake up Saturday and Sunday mornings. Like I don't pick up my phone. I automatically go brush my teeth and then go pick up a book, go make breakfast. Like I have to hurry and do it, so I don't grab my phone. But yeah, definitely that downtime is important, especially during this time for sure.
Agreed.
So where do you hope to be in 5 years? What does life for you look like?
Well, if there's anything that I've learned over the past few decades is, that I've been on this earth, is that planning is cute, but you know what I mean?
I love that.
But life does what it wants to do.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, just over these past 6 months that I've been at Vinetta, so many opportunities have blossomed. And I've
Mhm.
had the opportunity to meet so many incredible people. And I've seen so many different paths for myself since then. And so I don't dare. Honestly, I've got a plan for my company. I have a strategy for Vinetta, and I'm working really hard to make those happen.
Yeah.
And what I find is when you keep your head down and when you focus on the work, the opportunities just kind of come. And so I'm really just kind of writing uh, in a bit of a structured way. I'm writing by the seat of my pants here.
I love that. I love your honesty. So with that, with kind of just going with the flow, but also having these structured plans to meet your goals, what motivates you the most?
Mm, so many things. One of the big motivators for me, I come from a big law background.
Mhm.
So many of my friends, I'm sure you can, connect to this on some level. So many of my friends who have come through corporate environments have had such toxic experiences. And I think a lot of folks have, issues with toxicity in their kind of corporate environments. But I think Black women have a particularly difficult time. There are a lot of challenges that we experience that other people either don't experience or don't experience in the volume that we do, or in the concentration that we do. And entrepreneurship in tech is really, it's an escape valve, for me. Uh, and a big part of my ethos here is to bring as many kind of Black women up with me. My team at the most is an entirely Black woman team of technologists, and every single one of us have the kind of profile where we're very good at what we do, but we're not the kind of people that, we're not the MIT grads, we're not the Stanford MBAs that people are really going to give credence in this space. And so it's been really amazing for us to kind of set this precedent that not only can Black women create, not only can Black women operate in spaces like hardware, but we can also, even without all of the resume bells and whistles that folks are expecting to see, we can really produce. So that's a big piece of the puzzle for me, is really proving out that case study. Then another part of it is really the problems that we're solving on my business side. We run a hair company, but for us, it's really not about hair or beauty at all. It's really about solving the deep life pain points that underrepresented niches experience, that the mainstream really isn't qualified, frankly, to meet. I've had at this point so many talks with so many leadership folks at so many major manufacturers, and they really just don't understand what the life of a Black woman looks like with respect to their hair or their skin, or in any of the ways that our lives differentiate from the mainstream. And so, it's really important for me to kind of, again, kind of write this, provide a case study of not just the fact that investing in and supporting in Black women run companies is the right thing to do, but also that there's real business sense. There's a real business case for investing in these companies that can see problems and see solutions that the rest of the world just can't. And then, the corollary to that, right? If we're talking about getting support for these underrepresented founders, the corollary to that is the work that I do at Vinetta. Again, my thesis has always been, if you see a problem, you solve that problem. And it wasn't enough for me to say, well, when I get my big exit, then I'll go and I'll help out. We don't get big exits as a community unless we're all doing the work to kind of, move in that direction. And so I feel that it's incumbent upon me right now to do the work to increase funding and support for women-owned businesses and Black women-owned businesses. And that's what I do through Vinetta. So this is a very long-winded answer to your question, but I think those are my big motivators.
Hey, I loved it all. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing all the work that you do. I'm very excited for Vinetta. I've been following it, of course, with Technically for the last 2 years, and I can already feel the change with your leadership, and I'm so excited to see.
That means a lot.
Event. Good. Yes, I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, I love Vinetta. I go to all the events. I've been following it closely, so yeah, it's near and dear to my heart for sure. All right, last question. Second to last question. If you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Resilient would be the first. Powerful would be a second. That's something that hasn't always felt native to me, but I'm really trying to stand in that word a little bit more these days. And creative would be a third.
I love it. I can agree with all 3 for sure. All right. Any last words? This can be your time to share any upcoming events or announcements from your organization. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So we have, at Vinetta Project, we have an amazing event coming up. It is the 3rd in our Venture Challenge series. So this is the grand finale for the year. This is a pitch competition on September 8th. 4 of some of the best women-led up-and-coming startups in DC are going to be competing for a $20,000 prize and lots of in-kind support from our community. Traditionally, the folks who have won this competition have gone on to do really big things. So you really want to kind of get in on the ground floor and get to know these companies really early. And then also, my company has a lot of really great things going on. We have a really big announcement coming up in September. If you'd like to follow along, visit us on our website, www.themostcurls.com, and sign up for our newsletter. We can't wait to tell you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dawn. And this has been Technically DC Diaries. I'm Michelai Graham. Thanks for watching and listening.